Welcome back to another episode of the Family Album. I'm your host, Edenh Ttransic.
And I'm Matt Glass.
Last week, Matt Glass did his Season 1 retrospective and ranking
Yes,
on
indeed.
Family Meeting.
It was so weird hearing you say my full name. Oh my gosh. That's so...
Oh shit, sorry, the goblins are back.
What was that? Like,
That's
actually?
my GameCube controller.
Oh, okay. I was
They
like,
fell under the table.
I thought it was my hand sanitizer spray.
Sorry, we were playing a really cool Melee tournament before we started recording.
Yeah, we started recording in the middle of us playing Smash Melee.
Yeah. You might hear the controllers clicking in the background. The goblins also are getting in on it as well.
That's true. Dude, they're kicking my ass. I'm playing as Red Link.
They have a big gambling problem, too. But anyway, Family Album. Let's bring it back.
Oh, man. Well, the ambiguous nature of this intro kind of fits the theme, I would say, of just the rather nebulous nature of both the albums we chose today.
That's a good point because we actually have a bit of a theme ourselves, which is a little unorthodox for this format.
And unintentional.
And unintentional. Very much unintentional. Well, this week we're covering some vaporwave, specifically by the artist System Corp.
Yes. This is our second formal vaporwave review that we've ever done on just our regular Family Album episodes. The first one was the father of vaporwave album, Macintosh Plus's Floral Shoppe. Mm-hmm. And I, since then, have really gotten into vaporwave, as I mentioned on the last Family Meeting.
Yeah. Vaporwave's been a pretty constant genre for me since listening to Macintosh Plus as well. And I'm really excited to talk about it a little more because we do have another album on that we're discussing that is also considered like a pillar of vaporwave. But I guess, man, what albums are we talking about this week?
We are talking about
Hiraeth
by System Corp.
Yeah.
And also News at 11 by System Corp.
We don't really know how to pronounce Hiraeth.
Here, I've been saying Hiraeth.
Yeah.
But it might have, I based that off of the album spelling, which is different from the actual Welsh word.
Yeah. So correct us in the comments if we're wrong.
All of our Dutch and Welsh listeners, correct us in the comments.
Yeah, we know you're listening out there.
What was I going to say? Yeah, both these albums were very interesting listens. And I think this is going to be where our tastes definitely differ a lot.
Yeah.
With certain aspects of both these albums. But I'm very excited to talk about them. AJ, how should we decide this?
That's a good question because they are both by the same artist.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like kind of similar in runtime too.
Mine's longer, right?
I think mine's longer.
Really?
Mine's an hour 11.
I meant like track list.
Oh, yeah, track list yours is longer. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, would you want to do that then? Like kind of like take out the bigger one out of the way?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sure.
Word.
So Hiraeth or Hiraeth by System Corp was first released on April 15th of 2014 on Bandcamp and is the first studio album by Dutch musician Jorn Elzinga, aka System Corp.
Also, no, not his first release. He's had some EPs and like mixtapes before that as well.
I guess his first like full length.
I guess, yeah.
Project. Mm-hmm. Vaporwave is confusing.
Yeah, it's not as clear cut as like other albums.
The research for this is going to get a little spotty. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this album has had 3 re-releases on cassette, vinyl, and mini disc, as well as garnered attention as one of the most classic vaporwave albums in this genre.
Yeah.
I had like a little spit bubble going on here.
Oh, nice. Sex icon.
I'm drooling because this album is really fun.
So good.
The word Hiraeth is a Welsh noun that means deep longing for something. In an interview, Jorn said that he based the concepts of this album off of memories from his youth, making the album reflecting nostalgia alongside a simulated past. Mm-hmm. Kind of the whole basis of this album is like trying to recall memories, but having augmented like the ways of remembering them kind of overshadow the real natures of the memories. Like, you might remember it a different way, or you might want to remember your memories a different way. And unfortunately, the test of time kind of clouds that.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of like where the concept of this album comes from. Mm-hmm. But concepts in vaporwave are like They're very interesting because they're more nuanced in weird ways, I'd say.
True, because vaporwave in of itself is basically a genre about remembering and like nostalgia for the past. So like this album's theme and vaporwave very much complement each other very well.
Vaporwave is also very satirical and critical of like major corporations and capitalism.
Totally.
Which I think this album embodies very well. This is the first full-length album that I ever discovered by this artist. Besides like Saint Pepsi's, I think it's like Late Night Delight or the one with like the moon.
Moon Man, or sorry, Mac Tonight. That not Moon Man. Moon Man is the bad one. Mac Tonight is what he's called.
Yeah, one of the two. I don't know offhand. Again, vaporwave takes many forms.
Yeah.
This is like the first vaporwave album I think that I got into where I listened to it very often. And rather recently, because I discovered this album a year ago.
Gotcha.
And it just is a good vibe. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm very fond of this album quite a lot. As an active listen, though, I will say I could see it getting a little bit hard to differentiate tracks.
Yeah.
And pacing-wise, if you're not really into the theme, it might not be the best listen. But I am pretty biased. I very much like this album a lot.
Well, shall we just hop right into our thoughts then?
Yes, we shall.
All right. Well, the album opens up with part one of a title track with Hiraeth I.
It opens with like the super ambient vibe. I don't want to spoil again, but there is like a bookend thing that happens here. And I like it. I like how you can really just kind of feel like there's like this longing for something more. Because the synths are like the only thing that are like real focused on.
Yeah.
At least until there's like this one drum hit that kind of explodes in your ears.
It's very ambient in nature, and you have like a lot of like nature sounds in there as well. Like there's like a thunderstorm. There's like running water, which is like a constant theme throughout this whole album.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of like Motherboard by Daft Punk.
Okay,
a little bit. Just with the constant motif of like water happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It feels good on the ears, which I think is one of the things that I love about this album. But there's not really much to say about it. There are a lot of other interesting tracks that I think we could probably talk more about.
It's just a very solid ambient opening.
Yes. The next track, though, if we want to move on to that,
Let's keep it going.
is called A500 Green Death GenSys. And this might be, if not my favorite, one of my favorite tracks in the album.
I can see why.
It's just this really like ritzy, over the top sample.
Yeah.
Like, I love like the weird like record scratches that are like in the channels.
The production on this track specifically is really well done. I love it.
It's very fun. And what's really cool is in the beat, in sort of like this weird like offbeat kind of way, they sample cameras taking pictures. And I think something about that, especially as I'm playing Persona 5 right now, this like scratches such an itch on my brain. And I'm really just digging it. Like the samples used on this album all across are great, but the fact that he sampled like an actual camera, which I'm pretty sure is like, this is like the name
of the camera.
I'm pretty sure.
Gotcha.
Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I'll let you know. I'll research it and then link a description.
Cool.
But I'm pretty sure this is like, that's like the camera model that it was sampled from.
That's pretty cool.
If I'm not mistaken.
The camera motif is also really cool for the theme because it's like you make memories by taking pictures, and then having that just be such a constant sound throughout this track is really cool to kind of like nail that in.
I don't think it's overwhelming either. Like,
no, it's tastefully
fun.
done.
It's really, really fun. I love the production all across this album.
Yeah.
I'd argue there are some other tracks where the production like gets a little bit too much, possibly. But like, I really like this, and I think it's a really cool, like, true opener to the album.
It's like very 90s sounding, almost reminds like a computer game like intro track or something, which is dope.
It's really, really fun.
Love the funky like wah guitars that happen in both channels too, and of course with all these tracks, the bass lines are gonna go fucking crazy.
Oh my god, they really go crazy on this one. But that is all I had to say about it. I'll try to keep my thoughts pretty quick because there are a lot of tracks on this one and the next one.
Yeah, System Corp has a large volume of work.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
I tried my best to find the translations for all these.
Because a lot of these are in Japanese.
And the next one is called Emerald City 2070.
Yeah.
This also might be one of my favorites because this sample grooves so hard.
Yeah, man.
Like, I love how it'll have like the measure, like the full like 4 beats, but then it'll drop out one and immediately start the next one, which is like a true vaporwave like thing.
Yeah.
The way it just like cuts all these like different,
and it just plays with the like loops and stuff. It's fantastic.
It really is. This is definitely one of my favorites. Has such a good vibe, and I love how clean it sounds too. For a vaporwave album, which I'd argue this is more mallsoft.
Yeah, in a lot of parts. I think it's interesting with this album specifically is that there's a lot of like traditional kind of vaporwave production and like mallsoft sounds, but a lot of like ambient influence as well, which is really cool. So it's like a very nice blend of like what makes vaporwave vaporwave.
I was going to try to list all the genres that this is considered on the vaporwave wiki. There were 15 of them.
I see.
So I was like, I don't want to go through all that. Let's just leave it at vaporwave. The umbrella of vaporwave and mallsoft, which I'm finding out I might actually kind of prefer mallsoft more than like traditional vaporwave.
Gotcha.
Not saying vaporwave is bad at all, because I love it, but like this is just such a clean like sound, and I think sometimes like the haze I do enjoy, but I don't always love it as much as like this.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of a motif of the next album, unfortunately, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
This track is just it goes so effing hard. The bass is just the fucking slap, and then
Super
the keys, man, like, oh my God. Very well utilized sample.
It sounds like glamorous almost, just like portraying this idea of like materialism, I guess. I also really love how the camera flashes uses a transition into this track from the last one is brilliant.
Yeah.
The drum beat is really cool, has such a nice little shuffle, and I like how the drum break is what kind of resets the loop as well. It's very nice. It's just a really cool track, a very nice follow-up.
These first, like, I'd say 8 or 9 tracks really hold the attention well and just have like really great like samples used.
Yeah.
I also love the names.
They're
so
fun.
Cool. The next one is called Online Office V4.20.
Yeah.
This is just the music that plays in my head.
It sounds like the Weather Channel.
It's fantastic. And it's just so peaceful and like calming, and I just always feel really good when I listen to it, especially since like there's a lot of really interesting like percussion choices on
here. The
here.
shaker is like the prominent like driving force, which is really cool.
It is. And then there's also like hand drums that are like super quiet, but like really add to like the extra
like the texture
subdivisions of like the beat, which I really like. But it's cool. I feel like I could just live my day-to-day life in this track like forever almost. This album is fantastic to do work to. Like it's so great.
And drive to, I found.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think I discovered it.
Yeah.
Long drives with nothing to think about.
Oh, yes.
Oh, shit.
Is that a mouse I hear?
As MF Doom says, he's about to be one dead mouse. You know what I mean? Not Dead Mouse, the producer.
Man.
Or Danger Mouse. There are a lot of mice.
Yeah. And Modest Mice?
So I guess moving past that, what are your thoughts, AJ?
I agree. I think it's just a very mellow vibe. The piano riff is just really pleasant. I like how he kind of plays with making it so that sometimes like the keys or like the synths drive the melody and other times the piano does, and he does kind of know when to switch that pretty well for the most part. Yeah. And I like how he does that here where like the piano is kind of like keeping the main melody going, while also having like some like underlying keys here to like boost that up, and they also complement the bass very well too.
They do.
I think it's just pretty solid. I really agree. I do really like the percussion a lot on this track too.
Shall we move on to number 5?
Yes.
This one is called iColluseum Do. This one has like a really odd, like grandiose kind of feel
like
to it.
Techno, in like comparison to like the last 3 tracks, where it has like a similar kind of feel. The very sharp, scratchy keys as opposed to like the smooth like piano stuff, and like a very digital bass line that's like super wet. It feels like you're almost in like cyberspace, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah. It's like the synth is like so nice. This riff might be like one of my favorites on the album that he loops.
Yeah.
I should have looked up what each of the samples were. To be honest with you, I just kind of wanted to be in the moment, but maybe we can go back to it, you know?
Yeah. Stay tuned till the end of the episode where we list every sample and nothing else.
Because I totally researched that in advance. It just has this vibe that really like makes the track because this is the one where it's like slower than the other ones too, with like the like it's really cool.
It's really cool.
It's really cool. I do like this. And when like the vocals come in, it just has like a really cool vibe because they're super pitched down and like,
and it's cool having them like come in at this point in the album too to kind of like give you like a little refresh, so it's not just like the same over and over again.
Yeah. It's a good time. I very much enjoy this track. I'd say like I like the riff a lot on this one, but I don't know where like ranking wise it falls in like my favorite tracks because there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like it is kind of tough to differentiate them, which is a bit of a pitfall of this album. But like as like a whole listening experience, it's still pretty solid.
I would definitely agree, especially since there is kind of like pacing wise, there is like a section where you enter a higher plane.
Yeah, there's like a little suite that we'll get to,
which I am a fan of, but I can very much see as an active listen might be even just like a little frustrating trying to like differentiate. But
especially if you're here for like the stuff that sounds like this, for instance. Yeah.
Number 6, though, do we have anything else to say?
No.
Is info at Maneki.
Neko?
Yeah, Neko.
Yeah.
Because that's like cat.
Oh, yeah. Persona. Neko Shogun.
.net. This is so chill of a vibe, and I really, really like it.
I dig this one a lot.
I just feel like this is like a track where when you're leaving work, you're just kind of like trying to decompress as you're driving home. Something about that, I'm just like, this is fucking awesome. And the vocals on here are also really, really utilized well.
It's really cool how like the music sounds like a classic kind of like Muzak sample, which is like what vaporwave is like known for. But it's like a ballad in like what they're sampling, but it also they kind of produce it in a way that sounds like waiting room music almost.
Yeah,
it's really, really cool. I just like how it grooves with like, the slow down instrumental. I love how like much shine the guitars get on this track specifically, and how much like weight the drum beats have. Like just the sound of the cymbals is like really powerful, which I dig. And the keys are also super dope with that funky synth organ in the left channel, which just goes super crazy. And then the strings that come through at like the very end. It's a really cool, just how like every musical element just like combines to make such a unique sounding track.
I would agree, honestly. This is a really, really cool one. So the next one is called UU Apple ABC. The chord choices are like really cool. They kind of remind me of like Prince almost, with how like crunchy they are on the synths. The 3 main elements of the sample used are like so nice, between like the guitars like really prominent in the one channel, then like the synths in like the left channel, and then like the bass synth in the middle kind of cutting through a little bit. It's cool. I almost kind of wish this one was longer, which I think also surprisingly might be a detriment to this album too. I feel like some of like the more upbeat moments are not long enough.
Yeah, because most of these tracks are like a minute and a half.
Yeah, which I don't want the overall runtime to be like longer, but I also think it really dedicates a lot of time to like a specific section.
Yeah,
which I'm not upset about, but I also just, when you get to like the freaking Emerald City and like Green Death Genesis, like the camera one and the other one, those two are like so good, and I really like them. And I kind of wish like more of the album sounded a bit like this.
I gotcha.
But I can like appreciate it from like a stylistic and thematic standpoint, because like once the climax of the album kind of happens, it's kind of cool to see that suite unfold.
Yeah, honestly. I think this one's pretty cool, kind of similar to sounding to iColluseum with like, again, like the Prince sounding keys. I like how just muffled everything gets and like super quiet. Like after like the vocals kind of come in, like everything just starts like sounding like almost like it's underwater before exploding back in again.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool moment. It's very techno, almost sounds like a club track a little bit, mixed with like almost like an infomercial kind of instrumental. It's really cool.
It's perfect. The way that like he kind of utilizes this sort of really canned music vibe, but like makes it into something super like
groovy.
Yeah.
And that's vaporwave.
That's vaporwave as a whole. He really captures the whole aspect of like criticizing the overglazing of like corporate things and industry things, which I really like, because you can kind of tell by the name he chose.
Yeah.
Like that's
a little corporation. Yeah.
That's kind of just what vaporwave is, but I feel like he's like such a staple in that regard.
Yeah.
Because he really just like leans into it sometimes.
Totally.
Especially on the next album, I would say.
Yeah, especially on the next album.
Like this album, I feel like it's cool because like I'd say this feels like when you're working like kind of just like a whatever job.
Like at a corporate office.
And the name of the album Hiraeth or whatever it's called, the longing for something more. That's how I kind of read this album.
Yeah.
With its subtle nuances. Like you're kind of working your day to day, but you want something more and you dream of more things.
Yeah.
And even look to the past to kind of like get something more interesting in your life.
And then like romantic or like changing those memories to like make it seem like you are fulfilled in a different way.
It just feels like you're daydreaming.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one, not to spoil it, I took it more as like falling asleep with like the TV on.
Okay.
Which is cool.
We'll get back to that concept because it's honestly like really deep.
It is.
And I'm very excited to talk about.
Anything else to say about track 7?
No, I don't think so. I think we're all good.
Next track is called Garden.
Yeah.
I like this track a lot. Maybe not as much as like the other ones, but it's still pretty nice.
It's very relaxing, which I dig.
I feel like that's the good thing about this. It does know when it gets like all hype, it does know when to cool it down.
Yeah.
Even if it is like on the longer side and has a lot of tracks. I love the random like dinging sound in the middle.
Yeah, like the wind chimes kind of.
That, but also there's like a ding ding sound, and that's the exact sound for the final spin of Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, gotcha. That's pretty cool.
And I noticed that right away. I was like, oh, there it is.
Nice.
The water moving sound also, like, I love how the water is like so bit crushed.
Yeah.
Like something about that is so cool.
How it's kind of like, the materialistic world kind of like corrupting like nature.
Yeah.
It's very, very neat.
The vaporwave nuances, like they're not going to be as overtly like, wow, this is the
Well, Pim.
This wow, Pim, this is more than a pretty face. This isn't going to be like it's not going to be like a Citizen Kane level of like, oh, I'm going to be impacted by this art. But the subtle nuances when you pick them up, it's like, wow.
It's like,
that's neat.
Yeah, it's cool.
I do like this track though.
I also like how this track kind of complements the next one in terms of just like the kind of beachy vibes they both have.
Yeah.
Where you have like the seagull sounds that continue through both, and again the running waters like with the ocean waves. The beat almost sounds kind of like a chugging train throughout, which is really cool. I just really like the syncopation of how it moves and the production used to make it sound that way. And the keys just like super ethereal, kind of reminds me a little bit more of the intro, kind of combining that ambient like with the more kind of laid back Muzak production. It's a very cool track.
It is. But this next track is, fun fact, the first track I heard from this album.
Makes sense.
Probably because of how much I listened to what it was sampled from.
Yeah.
And that is Turtle Islands, track number 9. I was about to say by Cat System Corp, but we already knew that. It samples the song Windy Summer by Henri. I love this track.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
love the way that he loops the intro over and over again. I almost kind of wish that he included the vocals a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, it just does work really, really well. Like, just as the bass, like
music.
Yeah. It's really awesome.
I love it.
Like, I almost wish it was a little longer.
Agreed, because it's a very nice follow-up from Garden with just like continuing that like kind of beachy theme. And I do really love the Henri sample. Having it there is just really cool, especially listening to that album before this one.
Yeah, for real.
And I like how having it like slowed down and muffled, it does sound like a memory. Just like it sounds very hazy. And like it kind of reminds me of She Wanted to Leave by Ween.
Yeah.
When you have like the I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight reprise, it sounds like you're actually hearing this coming from a speaker on the beach, which is really cool.
It is pretty cool. It's like you're fantasizing about like where you want to be.
Exactly.
Because the word that the album is named after, it's like deep sense of longing, but there's another part of it that's like longing to find home.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting how like the nuance.
Yeah, the nuance.
The nuance, guys. Anything else to say about it?
Of course, the bass line and the horn riff are fantastic, but that comes mostly from Henri.
Yeah.
So it's just a really cool track, and I think it's his most popular off this album, which makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. It's probably the most different sounding out of all of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Especially for what we're about to get into.
Track number 10, Twin Palms. This is where the vaporwave like really starts to hit hard.
Yeah.
I'd say this is around the time where I start getting a little hazy about like without me writing it down like I have right now. It gets a little hazy to tell some
Which
of the
one is
songs
which.
apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll remember now when I listen to it again. Like I'll be like, oh, that's
that one.
Yeah, but like
Like trying to remember how these songs sound just off title alone is kind of tough with just the volume of tracks there is.
Plus, I don't think either of us can read Japanese.
No, that didn't really help either. Two of these tracks on here, I just put kanji parentheses don't know.
I got them. Don't
thank
worry.
you.
I translated all of them. No, this one's cool though. I really love the mix of the pitched percussion on this one too.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, but this is thematically, I'd say like right before the trend, like the total like giving in to your augmented memories motif happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool to see in real time on this album. This is a cool track. I don't think instrumentally it's like as strong as other ones.
Nah, it's just very vibey.
But it is very vibey.
And the pitch percussion is probably the strongest part, and I like how that drives the melody.
Yeah.
And I like how it feels like nighttime on an island, kind of continuing the feeling from the past two tracks. Before we get into Ｐlaza, which is the start of this little suite.
Haru Plaza.
Haru Plaza. That's right. I didn't write down all the Japanese characters.
Named after one of my new favorite Persona 5 characters.
And nothing else.
And nothing else. Yeah, exactly. That is true, though. She is now one of my favorites.
Haru's great.
This is where the album starts getting like really trippy.
Yeah, very ambient.
And I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're beginning a suite where you're entering the augmented memories of your past. The ambient tracks are like a little hard to like tell apart from one another.
They sound very similar.
I'd say for like the next 4 or 5 tracks, I was taking a lot of liberties with my notes.
Yeah.
But genuinely though, it's a good like intro to this whole section that is this part. I'm pretty sure from what I remember though, there is like kind of like a drum beat that happens in this that adds to the Ｐlaza.
If you will. I remember like the vocals in the beginning. It almost sounds like kind of instructions that are like all in Japanese, which is pretty cool. I like how like the whistles and chimes that are used throughout sound like distant animal calls or something. Just kind of like everything's like very hazy. Like you're kind of trying to like recall it, but you can't quite like fully form it, which is really neat. And I also really like how it like slowly builds in volume with like the keys kind of like rising in tension all throughout.
Yeah.
It's very neat. And there's also a little vocal sample that said reminded me of the Happy Tree Friends.
I'm so sorry. That's funny though. I don't have much else to say about it.
Nah.
Especially since I feel like there's a lot of other ones next that have like specific things I'd like to get to.
Yeah, and these next two tracks sound almost identical.
Yeah, they're very much like sister tracks, I would say. This one's called EdeN Транзит. This one has like this weight that I don't think I was like ready for.
Yeah.
In like a good way.
It is very heavy.
It sounds so calm and fresh and airy, yet like so heavy at the same time.
There's just like this haze in the mix that just makes it feel like literally like heavy, like in your head when you're listening to it, which is really cool.
But it's like weird because it's heavy with like the weight of your own thoughts.
Yeah,
like it's so strange. This is a time. Listen to this in headphones first.
Totally,
everybody. Like this is such a good experience, like front to back. Especially like if you're kind of just there to vibe and not going to be freakish and actively listen to it like the two of us.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I do like this track a lot. I like the way that it kind of starts, it throws you into like the hazy, like augmented memory state.
Yeah.
Or suite or whatever you want to call it. It's like any of the sounds besides like the rain are like wisps of memories from long ago.
Yeah, just kind of like creeping in.
Which also kind of reminds me again of like Motherboard by Daft Punk a little bit, like in that weird storm break.
Yeah,
where you kind of hear like creaking and all this shit like in the background. It's a cool thing. A lot of like far away like sources of memories.
Yeah, and just like the way that they portray that with like the different like nature sounds or like a little bit different like instrumentation with the keys is very subtle, but it's very cool.
It is cool how you can like kind of picture something.
Yeah,
like when listening to it.
And I think like the titles themselves are also pretty interesting in how they portray that. Like Eden Transit, it's kind of like maybe they're like trying to think about like a paradise or something or like an afterlife. Before it goes into like the next track called THe Hanging Garden, which is like very like a dark kind of turn into that.
Like I picture with like the Eden Transit, you're kind of at the mouth like entrance of like this thing you're walking into.
Yeah, and
you're kind of seeing it as you're about to enter into like the Hanging Garden. It's very fascinating. And like there's vaporwave that isn't like quite as nuanced as this with like its titles and like its sort of
like its theme, I guess,
and soundscaping.
Yeah.
But then there's like some people who decide to make like full length projects like like Corp, and it's really cool the way he does it.
Yeah.
Want to jump into The Hanging Garden if you got anything, unless you got anything else?
Nah, I'm good.
The Hanging Garden is track number 13. And I really just love the peaceful sound of this landscape as it like gets louder over top this almost scary sounding synth.
Yeah, it's really cool how like this like kind of sweep from Plaza to here, just it gets progressively more ominous, and like it kind of like climaxes on this track specifically.
Yeah,
where there's like this breathy haze that just like overtakes the instrumental. It sounds like there's like someone there with you, which is really really cool. It's like almost like a misleading voice or like a warning of like things to like look out for.
Like Virgil from Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. It almost feels like the mask of like this like utopia is like slipping a little bit, which is really really cool.
As they're like covering up like shit you don't want to think about.
Yeah.
It's cool hearing the two clash. Like it makes for like a really interesting listen. It really just feels like you're transcending somewhere deep in your mind that you cannot access like truthfully.
Exactly.
And then I decided to be all like weird and be like, because the memories don't exist. Hey, listen, just it's how the tracks made me feel.
We're getting artsy, dude. It's vaporwave.
It's vaporwave, man. Oh my gosh. I do like stylistically I do like this. I don't think I would like seek it out like outside of the album.
Yeah.
But like it is such a cool like turning point, which And
I do really like these three tracks together and like what they kind of do for this point in the album, because these are like the longest tracks on here.
Yeah.
And then like from here on out, it kind of goes back to like what we've been hearing before.
Would you like to continue to the next track?
Yeah. We got 52. What's the other stuff on there?
We can just call it 52, but the full track is Waterfront City, Bodum 52 Aloe.
There we go.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Yes.
Yeah, no. Or you could just call it Waterfront City, I guess, but 52 works. This one it's kind of like a nice little refreshing kind of
coming out of like what the past three tracks were doing,
especially since like the synth riff is like kind of innocent sounding and not like as heavy. It does feel like you're kind of like exiting something, which is really really cool. This riff gets stuck in my head like a lot, but it's still a good ass time,
and it grooves a fuck ton. Like when that bass line comes in, like that goes hard as fuck. I also like really dig the hi-hat pattern, like with the drum beat and how the fills go through both channels, which is really cool.
There's like really nice snare hits on here that are like superimposed. Yeah, no, it's cool. And it's cool that like, even though as like I said, as an active listen, it's kind of like, it could probably be a little fatiguing, especially when you're kind of doing this for the purpose of writing notes for like a track by track.
Yeah.
It's still cool how like generally this has held my attention to this point very well on my last like 11 re-listens.
Yeah.
I listen to this at work literally all the time.
It makes sense.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But I don't have much else to say about it. I got other ones to say.
All right.
Or to talk about.
Let's keep it going.
I have other ones to say. I don't know why I talk the way I do.
Is this really me?
Is this really me? The memories don't exist. I am a Kingdom Hearts guy.
I know, we know.
Like this is just proving to me that I'm just
all these, you just see X's in all these tracks.
Yeah, the next episode, I'm going to have the recessant sigil added to my name.
I'm going to be Metix.
It's not an X. It's a different thing. No, I'm kidding. Number 15 is called Umbrella Foundation.
This one sounds like Yankee Doodle.
I could see that. I love it. I love how this one kind of feels like really over the top because it almost feels like you're back in reality.
Yeah, it's like a corporate jingle almost, like a news broadcast kind of sound.
Yeah.
It is very much kind of like a wake up call.
I literally wrote it feels like the same, it feels like a theme to whatever boring ass job you work at.
Yeah, exactly.
I also love how right before it starts getting interesting, the electric guitar starts coming in, but then it just cuts off.
Yeah, exactly.
It like swoops in at the end for like a really crunchy like guitar like power chord.
Yeah. And then it's gone.
And then it's gone immediately. Yeah, this one is a nice track, and I like how it kind of ends the suite, but I don't really seek it out like otherwise.
Nah.
I'd say like, with the exception maybe 2 or 3 tracks toward this tail end of the album, I only really actively listen to like the first 9 tracks, like maybe 10. Like I'll pick it out to listen to. But it's cool that like that many of them for the first half of the album are like good enough to be by themselves listens.
Yeah.
So I can dig it.
Yeah. But next up, what do we got?
We got VERNE Flights.
Yeah.
We get back to the funk.
Oh, yeah. Some classic funk here, dude. I also really like how the saxophone kind of comes in, steals the show. It's really something we haven't seen at all yet on the album, and it's kind of nice like getting it here so prominently.
Cat System Corp does love his saxophone.
Especially on the next
album. We will
album.
see that on the next album. I enjoy the sample quite a lot. The guitars on here, I think, are like the best. Like
they're tight.
They're just super prominent and tight on here. And what's really cool is like it's got this horn riff that like you also haven't really seen much on this album. Like you just said with the saxophone, I'm just realizing now.
That's okay.
Because it's like the saxophone, but it's over top this like synthetic like horn sample sounds from like a Casio keyboard. And it's really cool. It adds that nice like Muzak sound that's been repurposed. I also love how you can kind of hear like talking in the background because I think the idea is like you're taking like a business trip.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense like a flight, like you're on a plane or something.
Yeah,
it's neat.
It's a cool track.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about this track?
Nah.
This one is called Madobe Girlfriend. I like the beat of this one, but the anime girl sounds kind of get on my nerves.
That was my favorite part.
There's like a split second I thought you were serious, and I was like, "Oh, dude!" It's like, "What?
Are we gonna have to end this podcast?"
No, AJ, there's no way you're a bigger weeaboo than me. Let me tell you.
You don't play Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, sure. Have you seen Evangelion?
I only half of it.
You're gonna watch the rest of it. No, but the anime girl sounds, they're like, I understand why, but it's also like, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's not like too much, but I remember I was just kind of like, why are we doing this? There's like this riff that's super like bloopy.
Yeah. A lot of bleeps and blorps on this track, which is cool.
I feel like anytime you push a button ever, it should just sound like this.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of mad that collectively, scientifically, as a society,
we have failed.
We failed.
Yeah.
Why can't buttons sound fun?
I know. Like Spaceballs did it. Why can't we?
Exactly.
We should honestly shape our lives around Spaceballs. That's the solution.
Your Schwartz is as big as mine. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, it's a cute track.
Yeah, it's very technical and like very digital, which I guess makes sense for like the title and I guess what this track is going for. And I like the little strummed guitar lick that happens in the left channel, but don't really have much else to say.
The next track is called 'Antenna Research. We're at track 18. This one has like the most aggressive sounding drum sample, I think, on the record.
Yeah.
But I do love the whole motif of the companies being like, we're a team, because it's like, fuck off.
Exactly. I was actually kind of curious. Do you think like he sampled that or if he like recorded that himself?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I could very much see him sampling that because like
it's got to exist.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. Guys, this is just a general thing. If any company that you work at like a major corporation is like, we're a team or we're a family, team is better than family. Team is more generic. But if you're like, oh, we are the family, get out of there.
Except for the Family album.
That's true.
And you're part of that family.
Tom.
Yeah. Only Tom.
Ben and Evan.
Other guests
that have been on.
Yeah. Nate Roos.
No, don't will him back in here.
No, we just got rid of him.
That's true. Yeah, no, I love the emphasis on the horns on here.
Yeah.
And I also love, like, there's a moment in this track where there's like a music sting from all the instruments and then it changes up formally to the end of the track. It's a really cool time. I actually really like this track a lot.
I really like the kind of like Eastern influences on this one. Almost sounds like it's coming like directly out of Japan or China with just like the instrumentation choices they're using. Yeah. Which is very, very cool. And I do agree. The percussion on here is being so prominent. It's like super dope. And then you have like the shamisen, or it's like a key font, which is super dope. Really gives the track like its own like unique identity.
I don't have much else to say about it, but I would listen to this outside of the album.
Yeah,
there's a good number of them. I would.
I can see that.
I'd say like a solid like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But the next track, number 19, if we got nothing else, is called Aquascaping Pyramid.
Yes.
This track is all right.
Yes.
I can see this one being like a tad forgettable. There are a lot of tracks on this album, and holding my attention, though I do think it does pick back up decently after this. It's kind of hard 19 tracks in, especially when like they're not very long or have like really, really like prominent like musical defining features and also like musical A-B sections. Yeah. But it's cool though. The riff on this track is good. It's really bright though. It's like a bright plucking sound. I like it, but also
Yeah. I think it's cool how it like kind of feels like the feeling of water without like kind of using the sound effect, which is kind of neat. I like the constant kind of descending key loop that drives the melody of this track, which is neat. And also like the intro kind of more because it's very disjointed, almost reminding me of like an early Ween song, which is cool.
yeah, I can see that.
But otherwise, it's just kind of it's aquascaping off of Hiraeth by Cat System Corp.
It is indeed Aquascaping Pyramid.
Yes.
But the next track is called Marble Fountain.
Yes.
This one's good.
It's like a little interlude. It's very short. Works as like a transition. I really like the chimey keys. Kind of sounds almost like a panpipe.
Yeah,
which is dope as
I can kind
hell.
of see that. Yeah. This one has like I feel like this one has an oddly distinct sounding like sonic profile compared to like a lot of the other tracks.
Yeah.
Yet somehow it's like kind of hard to remember how it sounds.
Yeah.
It does bring back the watery motif, which is what I thought about the last track originally.
Yeah.
But it does bring back the watery motif. And it's a transition song, but like I like it. It sounds kind of ominous too in parts. Not much else to say about it though.
It's like 50 seconds.
Yeah, it's like really short. Shall we continue to 21?
Yeah.
Called
Anyone?
You stupid. Next track is called Sky Lounge. This is by far like the most hazy vaporwave, like fucking far out one that we've listened to so far.
Super upfront with the production.
Yeah, like everything is just so washed out and like saturated
Like
and
very
reverb.
fuzzy.
Very puffy and fuzzy like a cloud. Like it's just so like this one is like vaporwave. Like this is literally it.
Exactly.
Maybe like minus like the cutting part of it because it just kind of plays it straight through, but like it's cool.
Yeah. Very much like a heavier kind of vibe. Cloudy is a good word for it, especially given the title. It's a very like lethargic sample, like very slow moving and very busy in the mix with just like everything that's like going on with all like the filters and like I guess the pitch and stuff. But it's a really cool moment, and I do like when he kind of like makes it so like you physically feel that like kind of like heaviness and haziness. That I think that's like some like stronger moments on this album.
It's a cool time. Next up, we got Good Night, track number 22.
Gotcha.
I actually really enjoy this track.
Yeah.
Only problem is, like, at this point in the album, it's just hard to really, like, feel the impact. But that's unfortunate because this track has a great synth riff.
Yeah.
And reminds me of Library off of Floral Shoppe.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because that's, like, one of my favorite tracks on there, besides the title track of Floral Shoppe. Yeah, no, this is a really cool... It's got, like, a really cool, like, horn synth that I really enjoyed. I just wish that it maybe was like earlier. There were like maybe a few less tracks because it's just hard to like keep track of them all.
Exactly.
But it's good.
And it's called Good Night.
It is called Good Night.
I think that's actually pretty fitting because the feeling I got from listening to the song was kind of like a prelude to the end. It's almost like a farewell.
Yeah.
And now hearing that that's what it's called, it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just like setting you up for the album to be over. There's some really nice guitar work on here, which I dig a lot. And I do like the main synth melody and just like the overall feel of it. It's pretty cool at this point in the album.
It is really cool as we're kind of getting to the last two tracks.
Yeah.
Track number 23 is called, I don't know how to pronounce this the best, Lacuna Life. All one word, but it's two words. This one is nice, but unfortunately largely forgettable again, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, it's super atmospheric. Again, really overly reverbed sound, but like it's not as like nauseatingly like fuzzy like Sky Lounge or even some of the tracks on the next record.
Yeah.
It's calming, which I do enjoy. The deep voice begins to talk to you, and it's like it's unsettling, but also kind of like okay.
It's kind of like imbuing like the theme of the album at the very end, which is cool. Which is basically kind of like playing its hand, telling you what it's all about.
Yeah.
I do also like it 6/8, which is very cool.
Yeah, we didn't get much of that.
I do fuck with that. I also like the vinyl crackle and the fuzz that's in here, and I like how that's kind of utilized to mimic the sound of water as well, having that come back again. I do really love how echoed and like distant the percussion is too, like, and just how like choppy that sounds and how it just like keeps like going on each hit. I think it's like a nice kind of penultimate track, but I do agree, like ultimately forgettable at this point.
You get to the final track, which is Hiraeth II. This one, I actually kind of like this as a closer because it like bookends the album.
Yeah.
It almost kind of like puts you back to where you started in this weird bridge between like reality and fantasy. It's got like a really like over the top like ambient nature to it, which I like.
Yeah.
It's like trying to say like after all that you'll always have this deep sense of longing, even if like the sort of inner emotional turmoil you go through all that, you just kind of end up back at
in the same place. Yeah.
Working in the office.
Exactly.
Thematically, I like it. This one, like the first track, the first title track, I probably again would not really like seek outside the album, just because like they're kind of there for just to like
set up an end. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool. I like that they ended bookending it because it definitely sounds like, even though these are really ambient and there are ambient tracks, they do sound different enough for it to bookend well.
Totally. I will say here, like the difference between this and the first one is that this one's like a lot more subtle. It's a lot more hazy as opposed to like this one. The first track is like this more kind of like grand opening to set up the whole concept of this album. This is a lot more kind of like low key and like reflective. To kind of, I guess, reflect the concept of the album overall. I think it's a solid way to finish out the album, and I do agree. I like how it bookends the whole project.
But that will reach the end of this album review. AJ, why don't you go first?
I'm going to go first. Wow. I think this album is pretty solid in the way that it blends traditional vaporwave production and elements of the ambient genre. There's a lot of variety of samples, which works as a honestly great sampler for everything the style of music has to offer. There are more traditional Muzak tracks like Info at Maneki Neko or Online Office. There's some like almost like club dance tracks with like over the top 80s synths like Apple ABC and Adobe Girlfriend. But then there's also like the pure serene ambience of like Eden Ttranzit and the title tracks. So for someone who's like trying to get into vaporwave, you get like a really nice sampler of everything the genre has to offer. The production is really well done, and I think it's a lot more fully utilized than on News at 11, which we'll get into. Corp makes full use of the channels, which keeps the listener completely like immersed in everything the track has to offer, putting in like little things in every channel, or just creating like atmospheres that you can physically feel while listening to them, which is very impressive.
Or even like see. Like,
exactly.
It's crazy.
I think the runtime is definitely the issue I have with this project, and the pacing. Like, I'm more prone to just like letting it like wash over me than like fully investing in everything like each track has to offer. There's nothing like inherently bad on the project, and I feel like for having 24 tracks, it's pretty decent. It's just not really my favorite. Some tracks could benefit from like being expanded upon more. There's maybe some fluff that could be taken out entirely and like condensing it to kind of like get the point across, but like in not such a long-winded way. I think it's definitely worthy of being like an introductory or even like a hallmark vaporwave album with some incredibly creative ideas, expertly crafted ambient soundscapes, and a theme that is rewarding to engage with, but I don't really think it's my favorite project. So I'm going to give it a solid B tier.
That's honestly super. I think it's a really, really valid take because I think we're on the same page with it for the most part.
Yeah.
Even like in our ranking. I do very much enjoy this album. I think overall, I just love the fact that this album hit me like so recently in my life because I don't know why I said I found it a year ago. I actually found this like last year.
Gotcha.
That's what I meant to say.
There
I found it like last fall.
That's 2024.
Yeah, 2024. But time has just been crazy.
Yeah, for real.
For me, this album delivers a really rich and immersive sonic experience as like each track is like seamlessly waving together with all these like ambient textures and like aesthetics, both like seen in vaporwave, but then also more like in mallsoft.
Yeah.
And like really does well with like its carefully curated samples. It's a journey through like diverse emotional landscapes too, from moments of like really profound longing, bursts of playful energy, and tranquil serenity. The album's strength lies in its ability to craft distinct atmospheres, each track contributing to a larger, more cohesive narrative. While the sonic journey ventures into trippy, memory-laden realms, the underlying themes of longing and the fluid boundaries between reality and fantasy provide a consistent thread that I don't think is like too hard to grasp. Wow, I feel like this description is just like...
Damn, dude.
I tried.
Was that off the dome?
No. It took me a while to write this, not gonna lie. Some of the tracks kind of fade in the background in terms of like memory, which is ironic because that's literally the whole point.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like the overall impact of the album is like undeniable, leaving kind of a bit of a lasting impression and very striking hard with like emotional depth.
Yeah.
It definitely demonstrates like a keen ear for detail that Corp had when he made this. It's both engaging and introspective, and I really like the album's ability to evoke specific moods that transport the listener to a different sonic space with like different sections of the track. So I'm going to give this a B plus and like a 6.8 out of 10.
Nice.
I think like I do like this, and like me being me, considering like I brought this album and like I have spent a lot of time with it. I definitely have found the value of taking an active listen. I think it is also good as a passive listen, but I also don't know like if I would bring it to like the same level as like Macintosh Plus Floral Shoppe
for me. No,
because like I feel like even their nuances with that album are so tight.
Yeah, and even like the production, I would say, is like a tier above this album, which is like how creative they are of splicing samples and like making just completely new soundscapes.
I would agree without a doubt. But it is still a very rewarding experience, and I high-key recommend anybody listen to it.
Yeah.
AJ, that was a very fun reviewing experience. However, this is Family Album Regular Episode.
TM.
Yeah. That's they're called.
Yeah.
We review 2 albums every episode.
Yes.
So we're going to jump into News at 11 with a little bit of history.
That we are. Dude, that was crazy. Those guitars were backing you up. That was awesome.
Yeah, I brought them in myself.
Thanks, man. That was really cool.
All right, guys, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
We did their job. They've been standing here for 2 hours.
They were like really backing, like News at 11, News at 11. Fuck!
Oh my gosh, AJ, what's the context of this album?
So, News at 11 by Cat System Corp was released September 11th, 2016 on Geometric Lullaby, Lost Angles, and Utopia District. News at 11 is the 14th studio album by legendary Dutch vaporwave artist Jorn Elzinga, better known as Cat System Corp. News at 11 is a concept album based on the September 11th attacks, envisioning a world where they never happened, using samples from TV shows, commercials, and the Weather Channel to portray the event as any other normal day. The September 11th attacks would not only serve as inspiration on this album, but for other projects made by Elzinga, as the attacks greatly affected him, with him stating on that date, "I think the old world died, you know, that peaceful world, that American dream world." So basically this album is kind of a time capsule of a pre-9/11 world, but utilizing samples from the media to kind of show what America was like before the 9/11 attacks, while also paying tribute to those lost and basically envisioning a world where 9/11 never happened.
Yeah.
As the concept is like, basically you're seeing this on a TV screen and you're switching through the channels, and before the attacks can happen, it switches over to the Weather Channel and the TV just kind of plays out as any other normal day.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of haunting concept.
Yeah, you picked that up pretty immediately.
Yeah, with the very first track just stating the day flat out. I will say the subtlety is it's not very subtle.
I mean, understandably though.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an album that he made out of him being hurting.
Yeah.
For America. So I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, like the track is literally split into, it's 20 tracks, with the first side being 9 tracks, the second track being 11. The runtime is 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 9 seconds. It's basically, it's painted all over this album. Like the Twin Towers are on like the vinyl inserts a lot, like a lot of images of the Twin Towers. So yeah, it's a very interesting album, I think, in terms of concept. I think it's executed pretty well. It's got some like controversy with some people that were directly affected by 9/11, which I think is fair for them.
Yeah.
As someone who was a baby during the attacks, I don't really have like, I guess, an opinion that could stand with it, but I personally think it's done really well and achieves what he sets out to do. But I guess without further ado, shall we hop right into it?
Let's hop right in.
So this album opens up with Good Morning America, and like the immediate cutoff of like having the dates said before just hopping right into the sample is like really ominous.
Yeah.
And sets the tone like pretty well for like what you're going to get into.
Even after this moment, when there are any announcer like bits and it just immediately cuts off and goes into the music, it is jarring like every single time.
It like sends chills because it's just like the dread of knowing what's going to happen like in real life. Just like you can't escape that, even though in like the album world, nothing is wrong, which is really crazy.
It's a very ambitious project.
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt. Like that must have been a crazy undertaking.
Yeah.
Like to try and like go and like research like actual
like samples of like the news to use.
When did you say this was made?
2016.
2016. God damn.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. if we're talking musically,
Mm-hmm.
I do like the 6/8 feel when the music actually starts.
Yeah.
It's really upbeat and bouncy, which I think is adding to sort of this juxtaposition of like the overall looming haze
Exactly.
that's all over this album.
Yeah.
It's like it's unsettling, but like you don't know what to focus on more.
Mm-hmm.
Like the haze that's over it and the fuzz, or like the saxophone sample being
Exactly.
super nice.
It's a really crazy juxtaposition, and I do feel like a strength of this album is that Corp's instrumental samples actually complement like the media samples really well for like what either is being said or like what is like the song's overall about, which I think he matches that very well, especially on some later tracks. But the music is sampled from One Ocean Way by the Rippingtons. A very nice kind of funky jazz track. Smooth sax. This is the first instance. Definitely not the last. We'll get a lot of saxophone all across this album.
Yeah, he was having sax.
That he was. Some hot, steamy sax.
Good Morning America. Yeah, no, that slappy bass though, let me fucking tell you, that really scratched an itch in my brain.
That it does.
That shit was kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm. I also really dig like the little guitar solo that happens at the end too. And I also like how on this track he kind of like plays with like the reality of this album by like changing some things, like glitching it out, and then like all throughout this album there's this like very present room tone or like fuzz like to like emulate like a TV, like you're watching this happen live.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool.
It is interesting.
Do you not like it?
I think it's like tough because this is going to sound really crazy. I didn't really pick up
On the theme?
Yeah. Probably because I wasn't listening like actively enough.
Mm-hmm.
But like I still have enough to talk about. It's
Yeah.
just like, you know,
Like you feel like kind of like went into it like a little blind.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do like any research on this album at all.
Gotcha.
That's how I do it, baby.
The Matty Glass
The
special.
Matty Glass special.
Next up, we have Morning Commute. I think something that I wouldn't like on other albums, but I like here is just how jarring the transitions are, because it makes sense for just what this album is all about. Like there are no kind of like lead-ins or smooth things. Everything just like cuts very abruptly into the next track. And this kind of emulates like the feeling of like switching like a TV channel.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. This is sampled from If She Feels This Way by Richard Tisnick. Just hearing the news broadcast, they're just so ominous, and like no matter like what they are, and then like the music here is there to like show that this isn't like reality, and like everything in this world is just fine. And the time frame they actually give in this track is pretty horrifying, because it almost acts like a countdown to like when it's about to happen. Just like the time of day that it is, how many minutes before the first plane hits. It's like just like fuck, man, like that's scary.
That is actually pretty scary.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm. The sample is really smooth though. I like how they have like the use of the jaw harp. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's like a wah on the guitar on the sample that's really, really nice.
It's dope as hell. Sounds like music to like drive to work too.
It's interesting to hear such like clean cuts like on the sample.
Yeah.
For a vaporwave album.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the super swingy rhythm makes it like rather lifey kind of feel to it, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the saxophone is cool because it freely speaks over top. Here's the problem. So a lot of my notes are generally pretty positive about like the music, but I did not pick up on the theme. So I'm just like, well, fuck, this is going to be yeah.
I mean, if you've still got compliments about the music, go off.
Yeah. Just, wow.
It's good music.
It is great. It's great utilization of the sample.
Next up, we have 8:46 a.m. For those who don't know, that is the exact time the first plane hit the first tower. This is sampled from A Very Special Place by Torquato Mariano. The line where the news broadcaster says, like, we like quiet in America. It's too quiet. Like, that sends fucking shivers down my spine.
That's crazy.
I know. And, like, all these samples are used so well to just, like, really instill that sense of dread on you. But then, like, the music, it switches it up because it's, like, again, this is a world where it never happened, so there's nothing to worry about. So it's, like, a really, like, interesting kind of tug of war with like, your emotions, because, like, you're, you know, focusing on this tragic event, but then, like, the music is there to kind of, like, keep things uplifting and just, like, make it so everything is okay.
Yeah.
I think like it does juxtapose these samples really well, kind of showing the almost like blissful ignorance of the person that's like the album is like about, who's like watching like the channels and stuff. Like while you were acting horror, it's just a normal day for them. I really like the guitar work on this track a lot. It's very nice. Has almost like a yacht rock feel with a very cool chord progression. And there's a really nice like string hook during the chorus. It feels like really triumphant at one point, which is very, very cool. I think this is a really nice track.
It's got a nice groove feel that I feel like makes it stand out like sonically compared to a lot of the other tracks too.
Yeah.
The string hits over top, the guitar soloing over top is very nice.
It's dope as hell.
Despite it having this really complex theme, I think this track really exemplifies how somehow it feels very lived in.
Yeah.
But like with the added context, it's like so like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this weird like forced day-to-day kind of like reframing
Yeah.
of this is like kind of insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's blowing my mind right now, actually. I guess in a way, the audience can experience this context with me.
Yes, exactly. Let me be your guide, Matt, as I take you through News at 11 by Corp.
Oh, man. That is haunting, though.
I know, man.
I'm definitely going to go back and like listen with like
That context.
And like with the added things you say. So,
well, I'm curious to your thoughts after that, because I think it's a very like just interesting listen through like through and through.
I love the snare hits on this too.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like you're really just kind of like going back in time.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Hell yeah. Next up, we have Downtown, which is sampled from Roadrunner by Boney James. This year we have Al Roker, famous newscaster, talking about how beautiful the day is and basically how nothing can go wrong. Again, very ominous, but I do really like how the music sample complements this attitude really well, where he's basically talking about like, even though it's September, like the weather's still like sunny, it's like a summer day, and the music like is also, it feels very sunny and very warm when you listen to it, kind of reflecting that. So it's a really cool like kind of like matching of tone, even though the context of the news clip is like tragic in retrospect. The keys on the sample are really nice. They have this like very chimey kind of peppy feel to the whole instrumental. And there's like a really nice like wispy horns and like a heavy use of auxiliary percussion that really just kind of like portrays this like summer day in the city. It's a really cool track and one of my favorites on the album.
I think it's really interesting with like the added context too, because like this has like a Steve Winwood kind of like level instrumental. Like it reminds me of like Higher Love,
Yeah.
which is like an overly like positive instrumental. So with that and the added context of Al Roker talking about the weather being like really, really nice.
Yeah.
It's so like interesting to kind of go back and think about because just like it's got like such a bright instrumental.
Exactly. Yeah.
With like it's even got like bottle taps and like blocks and shit in the percussion. Like it's crazy.
Next up we have Channel 4, which samples Wednesday's Child by the Rippingtons. I think like the MIDI horns they use aren't really like the best sounding on here, and I feel like it's one of the weaker samples in regards to the first half. I do like the keys in the mix though. I feel like they're kind of like the saving grace. And also the vocal sample I feel like doesn't really fit the same tone as the music as opposed to like the last track especially. But like once the sample kind of like gets going like past the like the media sample, it gets pretty good with a really like thick bass line and like the muted drums that kind of give it so much weight. And of course, we have the saxophone here, which kind of takes over and is a little nicer, a little more pleasant to listen to than the horns. But I'd probably say this is like one of my least favorite of the first half.
That's so crazy because this is actually written as one of my favorites from this one. Immediately, I liked this track a lot.
Yeah.
I like the blaring synth horn with like, it's so smooth underneath all the fuzz. It's giving like shitty Casio keyboard, but like in the best possible way. It's blaring, but like I really, really like it. And I like the choice of having the real saxophone solo over top, like the horns. Like it kind of makes it for a really nice like listening experience with like the different layers
of horns. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it honestly might be like one of my favorite tracks on here. It just grooves so hard. And I think the ending on this one definitely was one of the best.
Well, I guess we'll agree to disagree on that one. But I mean, it's still a solid one. I just feel like in terms of like the overall narrative, I'm not like huge on it.
That makes sense given the narrative, which I did not pay attention to. Oh, man.
But moving on, we have Heli Tours, which samples Mr. Cool by the Crusaders. Instrumental tone is like a lot darker, which I think is really interesting. It's like primarily bass driven, very low key. Sounds almost dreary, but there's like a little bit of funk to kind of like keep like the spirits lifted a little bit. I also really like how muffled this sample sounds. It sounds very hazy, almost like stuff on Hiraeth. Sounds like almost like a memory, which is really cool. And like the horns and the sax just feel like super melancholic in tone, kind of portraying this like longing feeling. And I also really like how they switch up the kind of formula of the album, having the news clip appear at the end. and how crisp that is in the mix as opposed to the actual music itself. And also kind of like sets up the next track very nicely as this kind of like distraction and like a vulnerable moment of emotion. It's very well done.
This one was probably one of my least favorite.
Gotcha.
I kept reading this title as Heli Tours, by the
I
way.
see.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
This one's like nauseatingly fuzzy, which stylistically and thematically I can understand why.
Yeah.
But also it just kind of did not give me like the best feeling when listening to it.
I see.
I literally wrote kind of dreary.
Yeah.
Not like, because you said dreary. I literally wrote dreary as well. And not really the biggest fan of this one. I think there is like a fatigue that I do hit on this album a bit.
Honestly, I can see that. Like, especially on the back half for me.
It's definitely like a little bit before the back half and then kind of like so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have much to say about Heli Tours.
Next up, we actually have a favorite of mine. This is Financial News. The samples Both Sides by Roger Smith, and it's really cool because this is primarily made of like media samples, like sampling different kinds of commercials, and I believe a stock report is on this one too. This I feel like embodies the overall like the concept of making a time capsule for the pre 9/11 world, just showing like the different prices that were in like America at the time, like just hearing how happy everyone is in like the commercials and just like how excited they are to like sell you these products. It just really shows like the relic that the old world was and just how happy and safe everyone felt. There's almost like an innocence in like the tone of their voice and like how like these commercials are delivered and like how prideful and like capitalistic like the world was before like 9/11 impacted that. I also like the weather snippet on here foreshadows the back half of the album really nicely. And then like the musical sample comes in like towards the end, has this like electric hum that really like puts you in the decade, makes it feel like you're basically hearing this coming out of an old CRT TV. I really like the key work on the sample a lot. It's excellent. It feels very bubbly and bouncy, very mallsoft, which I said. Feels like something that like you play in a food court, which makes sense and complements the overall nature of this track being all ads and commercials.
Yeah. I like when the song actually starts. I understand now why they included like the commercials in it. I wasn't too large on that choice. Kind of just taking in the album sonically. I did not really enjoy that because I felt like it just lasted like a long time.
Yeah.
But once the song like actually picks up, it was pretty cool. The bass is like really punchy on this one, and I love like the real 80s sounding piano riff. It's got like this like constant hum of like the synth pads that also is like really, really nice too.
Gotcha.
I'll definitely, even with the added context, still feel pretty mixed about this. I don't know. I feel like the commercial bit, like now with the added context, it's nice, but I still don't know if I really like this track that much.
I mean, it's definitely something I would like seek out to listen to on its own.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Like, cause I remember I was listening to this in the car and like I was listening on YouTube, so I got ads. And like when this track came on, I was about to skip. I was like, "Oh wait, no, fuck! This part of the album."
That's really funny, actually.
Yeah. I think this is in context of the album one of my favorite tracks, just like for what it says about just like the pre 9/11 world, and it just encapsulates like the time capsule concept super well. With just like the way that things are being advertised and presented, and it honestly kind of feels like a sweet in the way it's breaking up with like each section of like a commercial or the stock exchange like going right into each other. It feels like you're literally watching TV, which is really, really cool. But I can see why, like purely musically, this would not be a favorite. Next up, we have Tuesday Television, which samples Divided Souls by Jim Horn. Almost kind of sounds like the Golden Girls theme song.
I could see that a little bit, yeah.
Like the cadence of like the saxophone hits.
I think this is where my fatigue kind of began to reach.
Yeah.
I like the music that I was hearing, but it's just getting harder to keep like my interest long enough, like musically. It's still like a good vibe though, really like punched down feeling.
Yeah.
Which really makes sense now. I literally said it almost feels like the outro to a TV show.
Yeah.
Oh, God, the fucking like things that the guy was saying at the end of the track where it's like checking the feces and stuff like that and like all that shit, like that was all that shit. I just realized what I said. No, but like they're checking, like I don't remember what it was.
It was I think it's like this dude interviewing an author about a book he wrote about Howard Hughes. So it's the author kind of like chronicling like just the characteristics of Howard Hughes and like his weird kind of like neuroses. And then like this is literally like the moment with the new sample where it's like 9/11 has just happened and it's like we're gonna go live, but right before they can go live, it switches into the next track, which I think is just another like very like standout moment for me, where it's just like fuck.
That's mind blowing. Like
Yeah.
I'm remembering like this point in the album, like because I can still kind of remember the music and like how it goes
Yeah.
a little bit. That's crazy with the added context. I'm definitely going to give this a proper re-listen because like this is a wild concept that he like based this off of.
I know, man. It was very ambitious, but I think for the most part, it is done like really, really well. It's treated with like a level of respect and just kind of like honestly like optimism that I feel like is like needed to talk about a topic like this in such a unique way.
Yeah.
I think musically, this one does go on a little too long because I kind of want to get to the sample a little more towards the end because like the instrumental is very repetitive at this point. It is nice though. Like the saxophone does sound like very melancholic and longing, conveying like a lot of emotions, like wanting to go back to like the old ways, which makes sense. Just like the way like the held chords like happens when like the saxophone just kind of like wails is super palpable. During the bridge, the guitar work is great. Love like the lush strings here that are also used to convey emotion, and like the guitar and the sax go like absolutely the fuck off towards the end, which is dope as hell. But I feel like the standout moment for me is the newscast, and also I feel like having Matt Lauer on here in general is another example of, like the time capsule. It's cool to see in like all these like things of like the early 2000s and late 90s come back in like such full force. Next up, we get to the last track of side A. We have Evening Traffic. Where Are You Going Now by Dan Siegel is the sample. The cutoff of We're Gonna Go Live right into this track is very, very haunting. But this track, I think, is a nice kind of send-off for like this portion of the album. It's almost like a tribute in a way. It sounds like very triumphant, like an anthem of remembrance, just like with how grandiose this piano riff is, how heavy the drums hit, and just like the overall kind of uniting tone that the strings give off. I feel like this one specifically just shows how respectful this album is trying to be and like how much impact like this event had on the world. I feel like as a closing for the 9/11 portion of this album, I think it works very well.
So the Bandcamp, I guess, file section that I downloaded, I didn't realize there were multiple ones because I don't think I have the Evening Traffic. I didn't listen to Evening Traffic.
Oh no. So from I guess
because
Tuesday Television just goes right into Weather Channel 1.
I guess so, yeah.
Gotcha.
Because Tuesday Television's like 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's a longer one.
How long is track 9, the Weather Channel 1?
That one's decently long. It's like
6 minutes?
Probably.
Yeah, no. I completely skipped it.
Damn, dude. That's kind of what on Bandcamp is kind of crazy.
I guess it was like a fan upload.
Well, that sucks.
That really sucks, actually.
Damn, dude.
Man, I'm going to have to re-listen to this whole fucking thing.
Hey, you're missing a track.
That actually blows.
Damn. This is one of the best moments on the first half. It's like the closing, basically like a tribute to just 9/11 as a whole with just the way that it sounds. There's even some keys that sound like American football, Matt.
Damn, I missed American football as keys.
In the America album.
That fucking blows. I'm really sad. Damn. Why would they leave it out?
That's really weird, honestly.
That fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, sorry, AJ.
That's okay. I like Evening Traffic.
I'm glad. I'm sure I'll like it too.
Next up, we have the start of side B with the Weather Channel 1. This samples Love's the Reason by Third Force, a very frequent sampled band on this album. I feel like having the Weather Channel play out for the rest of the album is a neat way to see this concept through to the end. I initially didn't really like this side that much, and I felt like it kind of detracted just because the first half was so strong. But I feel like it kind of grows on me, and it kind of like conveys like the sense of optimism that he's going for by just having like the soothing music just play like till the end, as if like everything in this world is okay because all we have to worry about is the weather. It's kind of like a nice sentiment for this world of the album, and the samples are pretty good too.
They are pretty good.
They're fun.
This section of this record did definitely feel like the unsettling vibe the most, I think, with these 11 tracks.
With like the vocals being like the weather forecast.
Yeah. No, I definitely felt that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish this track was a little shorter, if I'm being honest.
That goes for a lot of these tracks for me.
Yeah, but it is kind of nice, especially with the added context. It gets kind of relaxing after a while.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that like positive spin on such like a terrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think stylistically that is great. I also just kind of wish that this was a little shorter.
Yeah. I think the sample is pretty solid. There's some nice organ in here, which is dope as hell. Of course, we can't escape that sexy ass saxophone. It's very chill, perfectly encapsulates the vibes of the Weather Channel itself. Sounds very blissful, and it sets the tone for like the rest of the album, where at this point everything's just a normal day. Next up, we have the Weather Channel 2, which samples Back Talk by Eric Marienthal. The pitch down vocals, they are both nostalgic and also very spooky.
They are.
And what they're saying, just the way that they sound is kind of unsettling. It like reminds me of like waking up in the middle of the night and then like just seeing that on the screen.
Yeah, I equated a lot of this entire section to like falling asleep with the TV on.
Yeah, totally.
And it definitely like both in parts like I liked it, but like in other parts I did find it kind of like eerie.
Yeah.
The saxophone is definitely saxophoning, which is nice.
Can't deny.
I kind of like how the saxophone like is so loud that it like almost clips in the audio.
Yeah.
Like it's a really weird thing. Like it feels loud somehow. They put some gazpacho on it, is what I wrote in my notes.
I like it.
I feel like the hand drums in this one are also pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of change of pace percussion wise.
Like they could have been there in other tracks, but I really noticed it like in this one in particular. It talks about the regional forecast and it's like so unsettling.
I know. The regional forecast.
And it's like I like it and also don't like it at the same time. Especially with the added context, it's like really like it's freaky.
It's eerie.
Yeah.
This album is like kind of disturbing at points, which I think is brilliant just because like it's such a heavy topic to talk about. So it definitely he kind of achieved what he was setting out to do. I think the sample is pretty cool. It's a lot more like funky and upbeat with some dirty ass sax and some like really slick bass work. And yeah, at this point, it just kind of sounds like some classic vaporwave all the way towards the end. This is like where you get like more traditional like Corp music stylings.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have the Weather Channel 3, which samples Nocturnal Playground by Russ Freeman. Here I kind of mentioned just how I like how jarring the transitions were, just because it feels realistic in the world of the album. And I dig the sample a lot. Sounds very mellow and groovy. This very rich, deep bass line kind of gives the track almost like a synthwave feel, which is dope as hell. And there's some like nice classic chimey keys that go on to really kind of like emphasize the overall tone of the song. And then like when the horns all come together at the end is such a great moment.
It almost feels like this is a moment for me where I felt like the listener is like falling or the person like I guess watching this or not watching this go down. Like it feels like it's somebody like falling asleep. This is where I felt like someone falling asleep and waking up.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with that. And for the vocal sampling here, like there's actually a line that stood out to me, which is the stay with us and stay informed. It almost has like a plea to like you know like keep watching. It's like
oh my gosh.
And like not return to reality.
It's so like
I know.
Oh my gosh. That like hits me deep.
I know,
like,
dude.
Somewhere in my gut.
Like even this far, like on the album, like when it's not the primary focus in there, there's still little things that kind of like brings you back in like the overall concept of this album, which is really, really cool.
It's interesting this got taken off of Spotify.
I think it was for copyright things.
That makes sense, especially with Tuesday television.
Yeah.
Like, I could definitely see that.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it's Financial News.
Yeah.
I think Financial News was probably because like CarMax.
All the commercials,
like, all this shit, yeah. No, I could definitely see that. But yeah, no, wow, that is...
I know, dude.
It's such like a stark image that it's like painting in my brain.
Mm-hmm. Really brilliant. I commend Core for just like conceptualizing this album. Next up, we have the Weather Channel 4, which samples Ready for Love by Third Force. This one kind of like progressively gets a little more mellow, has almost kind of like a 90s feel to it with like these like electronic drums. And I really dig the woodwinds they include on the sample a lot.
Yeah.
That's a nice change up.
It is nice.
Really add some like variety and texture instead of just the saxophone. Also some sick ass vibraphone on this track too.
The pitch percussion is very nice.
That shit goes hard. And this is like where I kind of noticed like my issue with the Weather Channel is that a lot of these samples kind of go on a little too long.
Yeah.
Like I like the symbolism in which the length of this album is the way that it is because he's trying to get those 11 tracks to like match the first 9. He's trying to get the runtime to 1 hour and 11 minutes. But like I feel he doesn't really need to do that much in particular because he already has like the amount of tracks and like the overall concept is just pretty in your face. So it's just like a little too much that he's kind of going for in that direction.
Gotcha. It's a good enough track. It kind of reminds me of like elevator music.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing. I think it's for what it's worth, it is a good enough track. Again, probably at this whole part of the album, I wouldn't really seek out much. There is one that I actually would seek out, but that's like a couple of tracks away.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no. I just kind of, this is another one where I was just like, I like the overall sound of it. I really like the synth flute, but that's about it, I'd say.
Next up, we have the Weather Channel 5, which samples Who's Holding Her Now by the Rippingtons and Saguaro by David Lanz. This one sounds like pretty bouncy in like its presentation, being like primarily key driven, has almost like this like wistfulness, and it's also back in 6/8, which is very fun. I really dig the drum pattern a lot on this one, using the open hat and the rim hits to get in on the shuffle. And this one's like pretty short and sweet. It's almost like an intermission.
This one is a nice come down after the last one, I'd say.
Totally.
I like how you can clearly tell this one apart from the others. Like this one had like a very distinct sound profile, I feel. It's much more relaxed.
Yeah.
The bass is like overwhelming, but like kind of in a good way, which I do like. Because I also really like how with these samples, the bass kind of like fills up more of the space.
Totally.
I find.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Having a moment where it's like not as prominent is nice.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Weather Channel 6, which samples Midnight Motion by Kenny G. I think another kind of vocal sampling here, like they specifically shout out that like this is only on cable, which again in like today's world is crazy to think about. But I really love the sample on here a lot. It goes hard as fuck. I love like how much weight like each key hit and each like bass lick adds to the instrumental. It sounds almost like a little more like sultry in comparison to the other tracks too, with some like really cool layered horns. And there's also like this like accented key hook that happens that like matches the pattern of like the horns, which is really nice. Of this portion, this is probably like one of my favorites of the Weather Channel like suite. Just like really dig how chill and vibey it is.
I like less of the synth pads on this track. Like the other one kind of had like more synth pads, I feel like, but then this one, I like the fact that they weren't really like in this one. Just because I felt like the constant just like synth pads were like getting a little bit overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
This is also coming from the lens of trying to find stuff to write about. So like, you know, I definitely think that's part of the reason why I wrote that now that I think about it. I kind of wish this one had like a little bit more bass.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Like, I feel like the other ones, there were definitely samples that like I could really hear the bass on. And this one I felt like I couldn't really, which was sad because like that's like my favorite thing about all these samples.
Exactly.
But I don't really think this one stands out that much for me. A lot of these kind of ran together a little bit.
Yeah, at this point too, because there's like some at this point where the samples are just way too fucking long.
Yeah.
So I sympathize. Next up, we have the Weather Channel 7, which samples Where It All Begins by Third Force. This one's like super vibey and like almost atmospheric. Really helps by like how much like upbeat, like sporadic woodwinds are like under the main melody. And I also really like how like relaxing and tender the keys are with some like really nice strumming acoustic guitar. Sounds like very jazz influenced.
This one very much reminds me of like a track off of Floral Shoppe. Like I feel like this is very much like one of the most like vaporwave tracks on here.
Yeah.
I'd probably say. Unfortunately, again, I just kind of don't really have that big of an opinion about it because this was like a very streamlined like listen for me.
Yeah.
I also trying to tell a lot of these tracks apart was like very.
It's tough.
It is.
Yeah. It's a very long album.
Yeah. Especially since unfortunately, given my job at the moment, it's like I listen to these like really late at night.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm gonna like actively take notes while I'm listening to them, so it's like hard. But yeah, no, this track is just like I like the similarities to Floral Shoppe is the main takeaway.
Cool. Next up, we have the Weather Channel 8, which samples Waiting by Cliff Sardet. The constant inclinations that are like from the vocals of the Weather Channel are very foreboding. Just the stay with us, like 24 hours. Like it's just kind of like reinterpreting what we've been hearing so far. The sample's pretty crisp, very funky, has like a nice synthwave groove with some very crunchy keys. I also really like how the song kind of like sputters as it fades out into the next one.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a really cool moment on
that
here.
Was pretty cool. That was a nice like outro thing that they did.
Yeah. But otherwise, I feel like this is like one of the ones I don't really have much to say about.
Same here. I mean, the funk wah on the guitar is like pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I love the chord choices here. And the saxophone motif still being there.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's just getting a little old.
I love
though.
it. It's great.
It's just getting a little old. I don't know. I think this also kind of highlights like a cool thing about cable television.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I forget who said it, but there's a guy who had said that television is like a vast wasteland. And I don't remember who it is. It's somebody notable, but I don't remember at all. But I feel like this kind of adds to that. And that's kind of what I took away from it.
Yeah.
Just with the constant like in your face of like the regional television and the forecast.
Yeah.
Again, I would not seek this out other than the album itself. But like, it's pretty cool, especially given the context. I'd like to re-listen to this side, especially.
Yeah, I feel like while I still think this is the weaker side of this album, I think on this last re-listen, I definitely kind of gained more of an appreciation for it. Just with like the context of the like, you know, everything's okay. And just like letting kind of Corp do his vaporwave, like giving him more of like the opportunity to do his traditional vaporwave thing and like putting that like in its own box, I feel like it made me appreciate it a little more.
I don't want to spoil it, but my rating is pretty high.
Okay.
Well, decent.
D plus.
Yeah. D for decent.
Yeah.
No. Channel 9? Or
Yes.
The Weather Channel 9?
Yes. That samples Full Circle by Third Force. This one is a little more upbeat, has almost like a kind of like a club beat behind it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's pretty vibey too.
The flute takes over instead of the saxophone.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
There's some pitch percussion on this one too,
True.
if I am not mistaken. Having it be 5 minutes is a little crazy.
Agreed.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Also, the voice constantly going extended forecast, our regional conditions. I don't want to rip on it too much because it's very well done, but like, I don't know.
It gets old.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
But I do think there are elements of the song where it would be just like great if it just was cut like a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think Weather Channel 1, this one, and if there's something towards the middle, it might be 4. Those ones are like way too long.
Yeah.
And could definitely benefit from being like chopped up a little bit to just condense everything a little more.
There's there's an aspect of vaporwave where it's like, I think it's tough to probably make it besides like production wise. But vaporwave is weird because like it's both meant to be listened like in the background or
Actively.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's tough to kind of appeal to both those types of listeners.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, 5 minutes of this is just a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially when it gets interrupted by that like booming voice like every 4 seconds.
And when the voice does come in like of no, like the music does like get quieter and muffle, so you just really hear the voice
You really
primarily.
just cannot escape it.
Yeah.
But I don't have much else to say about it.
Can you guess what comes next, Matt?
The Weather Channel 10?
Exactly.
All right, this is going to sound really weird. This one is actually like really fucking good.
I agree. This one's cool.
The instrumental is like sticky and disgusting, and I love it so much.
Yeah, very swanky. It's so cool.
That bass is so foul, I can taste it. Like it's just, it's crazy.
I can taste the bass.
Like, oh man, merch. Shout out to all of our bass players out there.
True.
It pairs so well with the saxophone, and I
Yeah,
love how
man.
just like pungent it feels as it's like on top of one another. Like this track kind of rips. I really like the sample. I like it a lot. I would listen to this outside of the album without a doubt.
The sample's Wasteland by Eric Marienthal. There's some like nice fucking crunchy funk organs in here too, which like play a huge hand in like making the melody like as memorable as it is. You pretty much said everything I got. I think this is a really nice track, a great penultimate one to go off. But we reached the end of the album with the Weather Channel 11, which samples Club Catamaran by Network Music Ensemble. This one kind of feels like end credits, as it's just instrumental.
Yeah.
And acts as a farewell, which is what the kind of tone of the song kind of gives. And also just the way that this ends, I feel like is very kind of memorable, where it cuts out, like the music cuts out, and you just hear like the hum of the TV before like kind of like it clicks a little bit, then turns off.
Because it's also like, especially given the added context, this is one of the shortest. This is the shortest track on here. Like something about that is so crazy because it's like even because of just how traumatic as a nation this event was. It's like you can't even hold on to this illusion for much longer.
Yeah.
Because of just, you know, I mean,
reality.
Exactly. Like, wow, it's so symbolic when you add that extra context.
Mm-hmm.
So like, Jesus Christ. It also does a weirdly good job of like bookending the album too.
Yeah.
I feel like this, despite like the longer tracks, Corp was definitely like aware of the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even it being longer, it's stylistic. It just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, like everything was very intentional on this album.
Yeah.
And while I commend that, I do feel like Corp does have some pacing issues as an artist.
Possibly, yeah. It almost feels like after a long night of like falling asleep with the TV on, you're waking up to just kind of start the cycle over again.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the syncopated hits are very nice though, if we're talking about the actual sample.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also kind of reflects like the way how like the song almost kind of collapses in like the outro. Like the pitch kind of shifts a little bit. They sound a little distorted before everything like kind of like cuts out again at the very end.
Yeah.
It's like it's really like showing like again like reality kind of coming back.
No, for real.
And that'll bring us to our final thoughts. So Matt, what did you think of News at 11?
I think my final thoughts are still pretty they still hold up even despite me not knowing like the full context. For me, this album delivered a very uniquely immersive and nostalgic experience. It like conjured the hazy atmosphere of like late night television, of like 80s and 90s aesthetics with like fuzzy textures and like the saxophone samples and like the vintage synth sounds. I really admire its ability to try and create like a tangible, like lived in experience, highlighting like effective groove and rhythm and creative just sample choices all around. Like Good Morning America is just so like sickeningly energetic.
Yeah.
Morning Commute, it's like really groovy. Channel 4, it's like those are like particular highlights for me that kind of showcase the album's strength in crafting like really engaging soundscapes.
Yeah.
The Weather Channel 10 also stood out with its like really pungent groove, as I said it before.
Yes.
I developed a sense of fatigue toward the latter half due to the repetitiveness and the extended tracks, especially within like the Weather Channel series. While I do very much appreciate the conceptual consistency, it's amazing I wrote that without the content.
Yeah.
But like, because even sonically it has like a consistency. So I think it still applies. Tracks like Heli Tours and Financial News with like jarring commercial elements were less enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
Tuesday Television and some of the later Weather Channel iterations left me feeling kind of just like indifferent.
Yeah.
Between like appreciating the vibe and struggling with my waning interest. The inclusion of the commercial snippets and repeated voiceovers, while I understand, especially now with like the concepts, because I just thought this was just about like falling asleep with the TV, which I guess like people probably lost sleep, so he probably wanted to make it like comforting in a way. It felt a little intrusive at times, especially on that one track where they like lowered the music over and over again. It like felt like my GPS whenever I'm listening to music and it's like, hey, you need to turn here. And it's like, shut up. But also I understand why, you know?
Respectfully, shut up.
I appreciate the overall concept, but I also felt like tighter pacing, the less repetition, and just shorter tracks would have really made my listening experience a tiny bit better. Definitely the final track was a very nice touch, making it the shortest one. Yeah. A very fitting conclusion to the album's like kind of cyclical nature. I'm going to give this like a low B, like 6.2 out of 10.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you still find enjoyment of it, like without having the full context.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely sonically worth the listen.
Yeah. My thoughts, I think this is an incredibly interesting concept that I think is executed like very well for the most part. It perfectly works as a time capsule for the pre-9/11 world, encapsulating what made it different and why America as a whole just felt a lot safer. There's so much blissful unawareness in the media samples, and the music reflects that perfectly, being used to match a certain tone or convey a specific emotion. Whether it be Al Roker's comments about the weather, matching the sunny groovy sample of Roadrunner, or Financial News sounding like the soundtrack to a mall commercial to reflect all the advertisements used on the track. Hearing the news clips is also extremely harrowing and downright chilling at points, as the dread of knowing what comes next is very present in your mind, but in the world of the album there is no danger. Specifically the line on A46 where the news anchor says it's too quiet, the interruption of we're going to go live on Tuesday television, like those moments are especially haunting to me. I think I agree, the Weather Channel is definitely the weakest part of this album. I think it's growing on me the more I listen to it, and I appreciate it for what it is and what it does for the overall concept of the album. But certain tracks and this entire side as a whole just go on a little too long, unfortunately. But ultimately, it does work for the concept and is brilliantly produced to capture the sound of the Weather Channel. Musically, the sample choices are all perfect, and the way they're mixed convey such a palpable feeling of nostalgia with the ever-present room tone, sounding like you're actively watching this album live on TV.
Yeah, that is really, really cool, actually. Because I could vividly picture that.
Exactly. Like, it just creates such a scene that like every kid like our generation like remembers, which is really cool. News at 11 is a genre-defining album that expertly showcases a pre-9/11 world by crafting an ideal narrative where it never happened, and I'm going to give it a B+.
Hell yeah.
I think this was a very interesting episode of the Family Album, Matt.
It really was.
Yeah.
Our unintentional theme of just Cat System Corp.
Exactly.
I think we both had a lot to say introspectively and like, I guess retrospectively about both albums. And it was really cool. I'm glad that we got to have like a very vaporwave focused episode.
Agree. It's been like way too long since we talked about it, besides on like family vacation.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think that'll do it.
Yeah.
For this episode of the Family Album.
I agree. Family heads, let us know what you think of Cat System Corp, both of these albums. Any other vaporwave album recommendations you have? That'll be a question of the week. Who are your favorite vaporwave artists? But that'll do it for this week's episode of the Family Album. As always, I'm your host, Edden.
I'm Matt Glass.
Thank you for your constant love and support, and we will see you next week with a guest.
Peace.